Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today. This is my third consecutive RSA keynote, and I'm very excited to be here. It's a fantastic conference, and we really enjoy being a big sponsor here. Today we want to explore the challenge of, is security really an inhibitor to using the cloud and a cloud adoption? If you read the press and the journals and everything you read about today, you'll see that security is generally identified as the number one issue: security, compliance, privacy, for people to really adopt these great new services. So that's what we'll be exploring today. In my role prior to running CA Security Business Unit, I was the CIO of the company. And our Chief Security Officer, Bill Taub, is in the audience today as well. And if we go back 3 or 4 years, Bill and I had similar challenges. Like, we wanted to evaluate and use software as a service. We wanted to use remote hosted applications. We started experimenting with platform as a service, all very successfully. We've all been doing this for a few years. It's not that this is all that new. And sometimes I think we fail to communicate effectively that we actually can do a lot of this. And maybe we need to debunk the myth and the legend that security is really this inhibitor. So today, we decided to go with a distinguished panel to really dive into this issue. And the panel is diverse. They come from different backgrounds. Some of the panelists are cloud providers, some are cloud consumers, and some are both. So we're going to get their insight and be able to share that with you. So right now I'd like to introduce our panel. First we have Tim Christin from Axiom. Next we have Steve Riley from Amazon. Then Curt Aubley from Lockheed Martin. And last but not least, Dr. Larry Ponemon from the Ponemon Institute. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So I want to turn it over to Larry to kick things off. Larry's a very distinguished researcher, but well-recognized, world-renowned. At least he told me that in our interview. And I want him just to kick off the dialogue by sharing with you some of the work and research that he's done, and kind of start the juices going, and then we're going to dive in with the panel with some interesting questions to discuss and debate. So, Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for staying late and listening to us. I think we have some really interesting information to share with you. We're in the Ponemon Institute, Larry Ponemon here. We basically do research. We're very boring. We focus on things like information security, and we're very interested in cloud computing security, and we're doing a number of studies in this space. But it was kind of interesting walking through the exhibit hall. I saw 100, we counted, not scientifically, I'm sure we've missed a few, but 127 different security products supposedly dedicated to security in the cloud. So that's, I think, a leading indicator that we're onto something here, that it must be important.
So you were in our booth then, Larry?
I was only in their booth, though. It was 127 messages on cloud computing security. So what I want to do is, this sign is like one picture is worth 1,000 words. Who said that? It was Confucius said that. But what's kind of interesting is that if you look at this and you're on the highway and you see this sign, you're going to have a heart attack because there's just too much going on. And really, when you think about the issues that are keeping us up at night from a cloud computing perspective, is really how insecure is the cloud? Is it as bad as people say it is? Or is it more FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt? And so it's just another security issue, but not worse than any of the gazillion security issues that we have to deal with every day. Another issue, can cloud computing actually not just diminish, but enhance the security posture of an organization? Is that possible? And it may be very possible. How do we negotiate privacy and data protection issues? You know, I heard the privacy word throughout this conference. Does it become harder to enable privacy, to ensure compliance with data protection laws, especially European laws or data transfer laws? Who is responsible for security? The company, the vendor, the IT gurus in an organization? Do we become less important, or is it really an end user responsibility? How do we respond to data loss or data theft or data breach in the cloud? We have more megadata breaches because we'll have more data that can be lost or stolen. What security technologies transfer to the cloud, and what technologies are going to be left behind because they don't transfer to the cloud? Is security as a service, this is a big one, is it economically viable? I mean, we think it is, but will it actually create enough positive economics to fund investment and better technology. And last but not least in this map here is, will protecting the cloud leave us vulnerable to other areas? I mean, are we going to ignore other important pieces of the security puzzle? So hopefully we'll learn from our panel discussion. We'll answer most of these questions
Excellent.
in the next 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Larry. I'll take that from you. So when we look at the panel, and I've got Steve here from Amazon, and Steve runs around the world being an evangelist for security and for Amazon services. And EC2 is a great service you guys offer. I know we use it for many things, a lot of testing we're doing there. So do you think that security is a barrier, Steve, for people to adopt those services?
I think people think it's a barrier, mostly from just not having a complete understanding of how a cloud environment might look a lot like the existing environment they have and how it differs from traditional IT environment. Right. So a large part of my job is to help people understand what we're doing to protect the infrastructure, to protect customers from each other, to provide high degrees of compute and storage isolation. But in many respects, I think that much of what we've all learned as security practitioners over time applies to the cloud as well. Simply giving up ownership of the infrastructure does not mean you have to give up ownership of the data. And with appropriate controls like encryption, security standards, and things like that, we can still maintain that ownership of the information.
Right.
And that's what I think is key on the transparency is key, because transparency equals trust. And one of the things I think we could all help each other out with is kind of demystifying this whole cloud, where I think there's a general perception that there's this big amorphous cloud that doesn't really, isn't really capable of customizing to anything. But there's private clouds and public clouds and hybrid clouds. And there isn't anybody that would ever offer up their IT security or their compliance processes to say, well, I'm just going to put it up in the cloud. So I think there's a bit of an education of that too, because transparency equals trust. And I think the more transparent cloud providers can be, you'll see more and more customers adopt.
That's great. Curt, you run an amazing center in Maryland, the Next Gen Cybersecurity Center that protects a lot of the infrastructure of the U.S. Lockheed Martin is really a global security leader, and you have a lot of customers that you're managing, supporting defense customers, a lot of federal customers. What's your reaction from the federal government side and how they're adopting things? Is there a fear from the federal government to adopt some of these services and use them? What are your thoughts on that?
So we're very, very customer-focused, Dave, and our customers have a diverse set of missions. And if you understand their missions that they have, you can see why there's some concern in cloud.
Right.
But when you look at certain missions they have, like citizen-facing missions, EPA, we can get on a cloud we built with EPA, and you can find out all kinds of information about environmentals of where you are.
Right.
And even one of our customers we're working with, a real nice cloud example, we put a secure cloud, private cloud, inside their perimeter. And when we looked at certain workloads, it made sense to keep it there. But then other workloads, they had some interplanetary imagery, and it took them like a whole week to do what they needed internally.
Right.
But when they went out and did a cloud burst to EC2 over a weekend, in about 6 hours, they got the same thing done, and that was data that was going directly into the public. So if you understand that risk profile, then you can start managing that fear.
Excellent. So, Larry, you've done a lot of research on different groups, whether they're federal government or commercial markets. What are you seeing? Is there a difference in the responses from the government people versus the commercial sector folks?
It's kind of interesting. We just did a study and it involved executives in the federal government. So it's not all government, it's just federal government departments and agencies. And we found some interesting findings with respect to cloud computing. I think we were not dazzled by them because we were a little surprised that cloud computing as a security risk ranked 4 out of 12. It doesn't mean that's not in it. That still suggests it's really significant. But there are other issues that were viewed as much more pressing and much more important. We also have another study that looked at folks who are at a lower level in the same governmental organizations. These are, we call folks in the trenches, folks like you and us. These people looked at the same security risk and actually put cloud computing at a much higher level. So either they're wrong or they know something that the chiefs, the senior level folks, are not aware of.
Okay.